Okay, so what I want you guys to do is we're going to be practicing little compositions with this paper that should have been out in the commons area. And I'm just going to state I completely stole this assignment from watercolorist Lester Lee. He teaches at Skyview. Feel free to look up videos that he has up on YouTube or other areas. He's a fantastic, accomplished artist. And anyways, but yeah, I completely stole this. I was in a hurry and I just took it. So anyways, thank you, Lester. So what I want you guys to do is choose 4 of these. This is just an example of a watercolor that Lester Lee did, so you can kind of look at it, see where he made his soft edges, sharp edges, focal point, etc. But I have 5 different photographs here. Choose 4. It doesn't matter which 4 you choose. You can follow along with the 4 I choose and just, Bob Ross style, do what I do, or just choose 4 of your own. And anyway, so I'm going to choose this little lovely picture right over here with a barn and some trees. And to turn this in for your watercolor paper, what I did is I just took one of those pieces I told you guys to grab, and I divided it into 4 squares that are 5 inches by 7 inches. And each square I'm going to put a little watercolor painting in. Or the other way you can do this is just take your paper, fold it, tear it into 4 separate pieces, and then, tape each little watercolor piece of paper onto your board. Either way, there's no right or wrong. All right, let's talk about what we're going to be doing. So first thing we need to talk about is when you're looking at a landscape or you're looking at a photograph that you've taken, what is your focal point? What is your main area of emphasis? So it doesn't matter what your emphasis is. What do you want to talk about? Like, is it the barn here? Or maybe you're really fascinated by the house, the fence posts, or what's happening in the foreground, or maybe you want to focus on the trees. It does not matter. So for right now, I'm going to say this barn is what I want my focal point to be. Okay, once you establish what your focal point is, where is it going to be in your picture plane? How is it going to fit in compositionally? So this is when we go back into our composition. Are you using rule of thirds, L shape, compressed S, composition? Do whatever that seems, natural to you. Let's see, I'm going to move this over to the side. Okay, so something I'm noticing right now off the bat is this landscape horizon line. It's about roughly 1/3 of the way of the paper, which is really good. That's a good thing. So I'm going to lightly sketch, where I want that to go. Next thing, I'm looking at that barn. I'm like, hey, where do I want it to be? Is this going to be right in the center? Like, do I want to crop this in a way so like the barn is exactly centered? Oh, that doesn't look too bad, actually. That could work. Or I can create some sort of rule of thirds thing happening where I want that barn in that 1/3 composition. That one would work also. So let's say I want to do rule of thirds. I'm like, okay, where's the barn? So back to my drawing over here. Usually, if I were doing this for real, I'd be doing this in my sketchbook to get everything where I want it to be. And you know what? Maybe I should be modeling that. Let's move to the sketchbook. Here's my sketchbook. Okay. Always do thumbnails. Just don't paint blindly. Think about what you're going to do before you do it. Okay, I want the barn right over here. I'm going to see if I can zoom this up just a bit. And I'll zoom back out when we start to paint. All right. So I want my barn. How big do I want it to be? Or how small do I want it to be? Let's say I want the barn. We're going to try this. Maybe this thumbnail's not going to work out, and that's okay. You're brainstorming. You're thinking about it. Okay, so I want my barn over here. Okay, once I establish where that focal point is, the next thing I need to think about is what kind of contrast am I going to have for the focal point? Is it going to be contrast of value, texture, color, etc.? Usually I lean towards value, and what I notice is this really nice dark area on the barn, and I want it really contrasting to this light area right over here. Ooh, let's see. I'm just laying down some values, trying to figure out where my dark pattern shapes and light pattern shapes are going to be. So right now, I'm a little unsure about this. How am I going to emphasize it? Maybe I need to make the sky darker than it actually is, so I get a really nice high contrast. Like maybe I want this to be the white of the paper next to these really dark areas, creating as high as a contrast that I can. Let's see, we've got some ground here. Some other things I can play with is I got these trees here that are making a beautiful rhythm, and I can move these trees around if needed. Like this tree that's sticking out behind the bar, do I want it? Should I take it out? How important is it? Is it, if I put it in, is it going to ruin the composition, or is it going to help the composition? So that's something you always want to think about. And I'm thinking right now, I'm going to take out that tree. It's kind of distracting. I want the focus to be on the barn, and then I'll come in, do these other trees. I'm going to watch my time here. This is probably going to be a multi-segmented video. Let's see. I'm thinking, I really like this tree pattern. Maybe I need to make this a bit bigger. So, you know what? I don't like this thumbnail. It's not doing what I want it to do. I'm going to cross it out and we're going to start over. That's the great thing about thumbnails. So I want my house here, or barn. I'm going to pretend I don't see that house back there in the distance. It's kind of bothering me. I'm going to lie that it never existed in the first place. Okay. And I think I'm just doing the same thing I did in the last one. So the word thumbnail comes from, it's supposed to be roughly the size of your thumb. Usually I make mine just a bit more bigger. And that's just for me. Some people like to go smaller. I like to go bigger. Okay, that's feeling a little bit more better. Let's see, next thing. Let's figure this out. I can spend hours on thumbnails. Okay, one little thing I want to address while we're looking at these trees and fence lines is do not be consistent. When people start drawing fences, before they know it, they're making let's see. You know what? I just realized you guys couldn't see that, sorry. If people are drawing a fence line, they kind of get into this habit, making it consistent and the same throughout the whole thing. That is boring. Don't do that. Think about how you can vary it. Remember how we talked about in like beginning art classes that you want your line to vary. You want your pattern and your rhythms to vary. So like if I were drawing a fence line, put spaces. Maybe there's some here, maybe there's one slightly tilted off to the side, and then maybe there's a big space, and then another one here and here. That visually is a lot more interesting to look at than something that is completely consistent. And the same thing is with trees. Be careful about being consistent. think about how you can vary up the rhythm to make it a lot more interesting. And you can gain that knowledge just by looking at what you're seeing, because sometimes trees and fences, they naturally do that. And sometimes you want to break up the spaces just a little bit more. And then seeing, like, my gut reaction is to make more trees going off in this direction. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video here. I'm going to keep on working on this thumbnail, and then I'll pick up when I get the thumbnail finished and go back to the painting.